Welcome to the deep dive. We're here again to take some really compelling source material, break it all down, and basically give you the essential insights fast.
Yeah, and today we're diving into a case that's, well, it's less about one single crime and more about watching this phenomenal, kind of terrifying evolution of a criminal mind.
Right.
We're tracking this really elusive female killer. And her most effective weapon, honestly, wasn't the pistol she sometimes carried. It was her incredible ability to just shed identities,
Yeah.
assume new ones constantly.
And the sources, they really throw us right into the deep end, don't they? It starts with this scene that's almost, I don't know, shockingly intimate, but also grotesque. We start in Portland, Oregon, the home of a guy named Dennis Poole. He's found in his master suite. And get this, the place is described as being the size of like 4 normal bedrooms.
Huge.
Huge. And he's shot at close range, maybe a foot away, while he's just soaking in this enormous jacuzzi tub.
And the woman he'd been seeing, this Tanya Starling,
Yeah.
long gone, vanished.
So, right away, it's this complex procedural puzzle. A multi-jurisdictional hunt kicks off. And it's led mainly by two very different investigators, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. You've got Detective Catherine Hobbes in Portland.
Yeah.
She's known for being really sharp, procedural, very controlled, intense even.
Okay.
And then there's Joe Pitt. He's this celebrated, maybe slightly colorful former DA's investigator from L.A. He gets hired by the family to bring a fresh eye to it all.
So our mission today, for you listening, is kind of threefold. First, we really need to track this killer's shifting path through her main aliases. We know about Tanya Starling, Rachel Sturbridge, Nancy Mills, and Judith Nathan.
Right.
We want to uncover how her methods changed, from that calculated cleanup at the start to, well, much more desperate violence later on.
Second, we need to try and dissect the motivations, which seems surprising, honestly. What drove her to become increasingly violent? It seems to go way beyond just wanting money or something.
Definitely. And finally, we have to look at the personal cost. The toll this hunt takes on Detective Hobbes, especially since she becomes the killer's final desperate obsession.
It's a heavy case. And yeah, this deep dive really starts by digging into the dynamics of that very first crime scene. Let's unpack how this whole thing even got started.
Okay, so Dennis Poole. When we look at him, the victim, well, the sources don't exactly paint a picture of a beloved figure, do they?
No, not at all. He was wealthy, sure. Prosperous, seemed secure, just back from vacation, apparently. But yeah, the picture's unflattering.
The killer, Tanya Starling, she'd spent about a month with him, mostly in fancy hotel rooms, it seems.
And the details suggest she developed this real contempt for him, like deep contempt. He had this awful laugh, apparently, a braying laugh.
Yeah, the source says his voice jumped an octave, sounded like a jackass's bray. Ouch.
Right. And maybe more tellingly, he was cheap, really cheap.
Yeah.
Proud of his arithmetic, always tipped exactly 15%, never a penny more.
That tipping detail, it seems small, but it really speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the kind of self-satisfied arrogance she must have been dealing with up close.
Totally. A guy performing wealth, but lacking any real grace or generosity.
So in that super opulent setting, the giant jacuzzi, the jets going, she pulls out a pistol.
And it's a close-range shot.
Yeah.
Which suggests, not a struggle, but something planned. A very definitive end to the relationship.
And then she's gone. Tanya Starling leaves the scene, and poof, that identity just ceases to exist almost instantly.
Which brings in Detective Catherine Hobbes. She's leading the Portland end of the investigation, and she starts with almost nothing, really. But the few bits of trace evidence she finds turn out to be crucial.
Okay, so what did they find initially? What pointed towards this unknown killer?
Long, straight blonde hairs.
Yeah.
That was the main thing. And critically, they found them in several places on Dennis's suits, embedded in the carpet, even stuck to his bathrobe.
Right, and they checked that against
Everything they could. The regular cleaning crew, mighty maids, they were all documented as Black or Hispanic women. So the hairs didn't match them. Didn't match corporate contacts either. This blonde woman was definitely there, and she was clearly an outsider to his regular life. She was the key.
And the scene itself, the state it was left in, that was significant too, right? You mentioned cleanliness earlier.
Hugely significant. Yes, there was blood, obviously, but it was contained. The scene was described as cleaned up, meticulously managed. And that immediately raises red flags for Joe Pitt, the LA investigator.
Okay, tell us about him. He's brought in by the victim's cousin.
Yeah, Hugo Poole.
Yeah?
The victim's cousin. And Hugo's quite a character himself. High profile, operates his office out of an old downtown movie theater, which tells you something about his style.
A flair for the dramatic, maybe?
You could say that. He hires Pitt because his immediate assumption is that this murder must be connected to his world. some kind of reprisal for his own high-risk business dealings down in L.A.
But Pitt, he might have this reputation as a gambler, a drinker, but he's sharp. He dismisses Hugo's theory almost immediately. Why? What was his reasoning?
It all came down to that cleanliness. Pitt argues, pretty convincingly, that if this were a reprisal killing, a message sent from Hugo's shady L.A. connections, the killers wouldn't bother hiding who did it. And they certainly wouldn't clean up.
Right. They'd want it messy.
Exactly. They'd want it as big and ugly as they could make it to make absolutely sure the target, or whoever found the body, understood the threat and where it came from. This murder, though, was contained, almost staged.
Which suggested...
Not intimidation, not a business hit. It suggested something personal, something driven by maybe an obsessive need for control.
And just to really understand why Hugo Poole might even think it was a reprisal, the sources give us this glimpse into his world, right? This meeting he has.
Oh, yeah. It's intense. A nocturnal meeting set up in the concrete bed of the Tujunga Wash near the L.A. River confluence. A deliberately risky spot.
What?
Well, Hugo apparently likes meeting near TV studios because of the security guards, but he also knows you can't let caution become predictable. It's all part of his paranoid dance.
And he meets this guy, Steve Rao.
Right. Rao shows up in a black Hummer, flanked by two guys in sport coats, clearly hiding firearms, muscle. And the conflict is about money, a standing demand for $10,000 a month.
Okay, so that definitely paints a picture. Hugo Poole lives in a world where violence is transactional, loud, probably messy.
Exactly. But Pitt sees that Dennis Poole's death wasn't like that at all. It was specific, quiet, targeted. And the killer's fastidiousness, that obsessive cleaning, trying to wipe away every trace, even down to fibers. That's the real clue here.
So the takeaway from this first part isn't really about Dennis Poole himself.
No, it's about the killer's psychological signature. It's revealed right there in the act of cleaning. Hobbes knows they're looking for a blonde woman. But Pitt suspects they're hunting someone pathologically obsessed with controlling their environment, their performance.
And that obsession with control, that leads us right into the really mind-bending part of this case, how she created these other lives.
Yeah, the shift from Tanya Starling to the next alias, Rachel Sturbridge, it's basically instantaneous and incredibly complex. This wasn't just, grabbing a wig and a fake driver's license.
No, it was way beyond that. It was about establishing a whole new, legally recognizable paper trail.
Totally. She rents a small house, gets Rachel Sturbridge added to the lease, but then she also rents a P.O. box, cleverly listing both names, Rachel Sturbridge and T. Starling, linking the new identity back to the old one she just ditched.
Okay, that's smart. Layers.
And this is really key. She files the fictitious business name statement. Now, that sounds like boring paperwork, but it's crucial.
Why? What does that do?
It legally registers Rachel Sturbridge and T. Starling as doing business under the name Singular Aspects. By filing this with City Hall, she creates a public verifiable record that Rachel Sturbridge actually exists in the system.
And Singular Aspects, this business.
It was completely meaningless. Some kind of mail-order newsletter for alternative lifestyles. Just total cover, created purely for the sake of bureaucratic existence.
Wow. And then she needed a pass for Rachel, right? Where did that come from?
This is fascinating. She goes online, finds a fan site dedicated to this relatively unknown actress, Renee Stibble Penrose, and on that site, she finds an image of a blank birth certificate.
She copies the image.
Copies the blank image, yeah. Then she fills in the details herself. Creates Rachel Martha Sturbridge, age 25, a Connecticut girl.
So her new Identities Foundation is literally built on copying a blank slate associated with an actress, someone whose job is to pretend to be other people.
Exactly. Identity theft as performance art, like you said. It really highlights how derivative her sense of self might have been, even at this stage.
Okay, so she's got this fake framework set up. Rachel Sturbridge exists. On paper, at least. Now what? She starts the next cycle.
Yeah, the seduction cycle begins again. This time, she targets a guy named David Larson, wealthy businessman from Austin, Texas.
And she chooses him carefully.
Seems like it. She clocks his quality immediately, notes his expensive clothes, specifically spots his Patek Philippe watch, which the sources mention is worth around $6 grand. She's definitely looking for status, not just cash.
And how does she act? What's her persona as Rachel?
It's really calculated. She adopts this serene, smooth-faced expression. The source calls it the habitual demeanor of a just queen, gives her speech a condescending ease. She's playing the part of this sophisticated, untouchable, successful woman.
Okay. And what's she selling him on? Besides herself, I mean.
Singular aspects, her fake magazine, and her pitch is actually pretty sharp psychologically. She tells them the magazine capitalizes on this American desire people have to feel like a maverick, unique.
Selling individuality.
Exactly. Selling fabricated individuality, which is precisely what she herself is doing. She talks about covering all the lifestyle trends, the wave after wave of fads coming out of San Francisco beatniks, hippies, food trends, the computer revolution.
It's almost meta, isn't it?
It really is. But the whole thing falls apart. And it falls apart because of her own psychological fragility, it seems.
What happened?
Larson, being a smart businessman, does the sensible thing. He hires detectives to check her background. Standard due diligence, right?
For him, yeah. But for Rachel?
For Rachel, whose entire existence is a fabrication, it's a disaster, a total catastrophe.
And this is where things take a darker turn, isn't it? Moving from just being a con artist to something else.
Absolutely, because the sources say she feels utterly betrayed, heartbroken even, and you have to stop and ask, why? She's the one running the massive deception here.
It doesn't make logical sense.
Not at all. The analysis suggests that for her constructed identity, for Rachel to feel real, it needed genuine acceptance, genuine trust. When Larson checked her background, he wasn't just exposing the lie. In her mind, he was rejecting the performance.
So she wasn't just upset about losing a potential mark.
No. It seems she was heartbroken because she failed to win the trust that would have validated her fake life. Her reaction is intense. She demands he shred the detective's files, and then she immediately abandons the Rachel Sturbridge identity.
And this emotional breakdown, this feeling of betrayal, it leads directly to the next alias.
Directly. She becomes Nancy Mills. And this leads to a really significant escalation in violence. The Brian Corey incident in L.A.
Tell us about that.
She picks up this guy, Brian Corey, at a rooftop bar, seduces him, manipulates him back to his hotel room, 8th floor of the Beverly Hilton.
And this feels different from the pool murder, doesn't it? That seemed calculated, planned.
Very different. Corey ends up going off the balcony. Whether he jumped, fell, or was pushed is ambiguous, but the circumstances are highly suspicious. And the analysis of her internal state during this is chilling.
What was going on in her head, according to the sources?
Okay, this is fascinating. It connects sex and violence in a really disturbing way. After their encounter, she reportedly felt this surprising resentment for what they had taken from her. She felt coerced, even though she initiated the whole thing.
Wow.
That's warped, deeply warped. It points to this incredibly damaged sense of self-worth, all tied up with control. It seemed she didn't kill him for any rational reason like covering tracks. She killed him because she actually enjoyed the manipulation itself. The source mentions her patiently moving him toward the balcony.
So the killing itself became the point.
It seems like it transitioned from being a functional necessity getting rid of Poole to becoming a source of this perverse personal empowerment. A failure in her identity project, the Rachel Sturbridge collapse, led directly to, well, recreational cruelty almost.
Okay, so if she was so successful at running from the Portland murder, why risk everything on a random pickup like Brian Corey in L.A.? Was it just this pathological need? Or was it a sign her process was breaking down?
I think it's both. It was a failure of her previous process, definitely. The Rachel Sturbridge persona was about building wealth, security that takes time, patience. Nancy Mills, the identity she used with Corey, seems much more impulsive.
Reacting instead of planning.
Exactly. Reacting to that immediate emotional sting from the Larson betrayal. She went for instant power, instant manipulation, instead of long-term stability.
Yeah.
And that instability, that impulsiveness, is exactly what sends her spiraling into the next, even more reckless phase.
Right, so the Brian Corey incident blows up in her face. Her picture ends up in the newspaper connected to his death. And that exposure, being publicly identified again, even under a fake name, it triggers
Panic.
total panic,
Yeah.
blind panic. She needs to run immediately, and she needs resources of her. Car, money right now.
And that desperation leads to her most impulsive murder yet, doesn't it? Which also creates this weird forensic situation. Yeah, it's fascinating. She kills her neighbor, Mary Tilson, the woman in apartment 4, using a simple butcher knife. The motive, purely functional, to steal her car and get out of L.A. It's frantic, spontaneous, born purely out of desperation.
But you mentioned a paradox.
The paradox is the cleaning. Hobbes and the lab analyst, Tony, they pick up on this. Despite the obvious desperation, the sudden violence of the act, the killer's fastidious cleaning compulsion is still there. She wiped the handle of the butcher knife completely clean.
No prints, no fibers.
Nothing that wasn't already expected in the victim's apartment. No trace of Nancy Mills.
What does that tell Hobbes?
It's a critical insight for her. It tells her the killer isn't, some seasoned professional hit woman. But she is an incredibly fast learner. She might be leaving tiny incremental traces behind the blonde hairs in Portland, maybe other microscopic stuff, but she's evolving her methods faster than the police can build a profile.
She's adapting to the investigation itself.
Seems like it. Maintaining this pathological commitment to cleanliness, even while her emotional state is clearly degrading. It's a bizarre combination of control and chaos.
So Nancy Mills is done. She ditches the stolen Honda at LAX, gets on a bus, and ends up where?
Flagstaff, Arizona. And she adopts a new name, Nicole Davis. And here, her strategy shifts again. She moves away from seducing wealthy men.
To what?
To manipulating vulnerability. She targets a teenager, Tyler Gilman Ty, who works at a place called El Taco Rancho.
Why him? Why a teenager?
Because she reads him perfectly. Ty is resentful. He feels his parents are weak, letting judgmental people like this Mrs. Campbell character walk all over them. And by extension, him. He feels controlled, powerless.
And Nicole Davis?
She presents herself as vulnerable, helpless,
Yeah.
needing protection. She mirrors the very qualities Ty feels compelled to defend against in his own life.
And he falls for it.
Hook, line, and thinker. He's completely devoted. He hides her in his parents' house out in Darling, Arizona, while they're away on vacation. He buys her new clothes, a suitcase. He's all in.
And what does she do? Does she try to build another business?
No, this time she plays a different role. She creates new identities for both of them. Anne Margaret Forster for herself, and James Russell Forster for Ty.
Like a couple.
Like a married couple. She's creating this instant nuclear family identity built entirely on performance and manipulation. She uses the mother's nail kit, dyes her hair again, puts in blue contacts. She's trying to become this fully realized, successful family woman, using the resources of the actual family she's destroying by manipulating their son.
That's incredibly twisted, but things escalate dramatically in Flagstaff, don't they? She's not just hiding anymore.
No, she moves on to counterintelligence. She actually orchestrates a sniper attack targeting Detective Hobbes' rental car while Hobbes is in Flagstaff investigating.
Using Ty?
Using Ty and using Ty's father's hunting rifle.
Oh.
.3006.
Wow. That's a huge leap, trying to kill the lead investigator.
Massive. Shocking, really. Serial killers typically evade, they run. They don't usually turn around and actively try to murder the police hunting them. It shows how threatened she felt. Hobbes wasn't just a threat to her freedom anymore. She was a threat to this new, fragile identity she was building with Ty.
And Hobbes survives. How?
Pure observational skill. And her procedural knowledge, really. She recognized the sound of the gunshot, a hunting rifle, that specific .3006 caliber. She noted the distinctive delay as the shooter worked the bolt action.
Ah, not a semi-automatic.
Exactly. The timing was too slow for a professional using a more modern weapon. That slight delay told her it was likely an amateur with a bolt-action rifle. So she immediately hit the gas and started weaving the car. Saved her life.
What did that tell her about the attack?
It told her two things. One, the shooter probably wasn't a trained killer, likely an amateur. Two, this was deeply personal, not some organized hit. It confirmed the killer was still reacting, maybe desperately, not executing some grand professional plan.
And do we get confirmation that it was the killer orchestrating this?
We do. Through the arrival of Calvin Dunn. Remember Hugo Poole, the cousin in L.A.?
Yeah, the guy with the movie theater office.
He'd hired a new investigator, Calvin Dunn, described as dangerous. And Dunn happens to be in Flagstaff, too, also trying to find the killer for Hugo. He actually intercepts the shooter, Ty, on the fire escape right after the attempt.
And Dunn figures it out.
Yeah, Dunn confirms Ty was the shooter and that he was acting under the direction of the woman he was hiding, Nicole Davis's. He also confirms the amateur aspect notes, Ty fumbling with the rifle, which is out of ammo. Dunn decides the immediate threat is neutralized.
But that event, the killer actively trying to take out Hobbes, that changes everything, doesn't it?
Completely. It signifies this terrifying shift. The investigation is no longer just about finding a fugitive. It's about stopping a dedicated, evolving predator who now sees the lead detective as the ultimate obstacle to achieving her perfect, fabricated life. The hunter has become the hunted, in a way.
So the game becomes intensely personal now. The killer tracks Hobbes back to Portland. She's using another identity.
Yeah, now she's Judith Nathan. And her methods for tracking Hobbes are interesting. She's using old home and cell phone numbers, doing basic internet searches. It feels kind of desperate, almost amateurish compared to her earlier sophisticated fabrications.
Less cloak and dagger, more brute force.
Sort of. And her first physical act back in Portland really reflects that desperation. arson.
She tries to burn down Hobbes's house.
Sets fire to it using charcoal starter fluid. Again, not the work of a meticulous professional. Hobbes' own captain, Farber, points this out. It's crude, non-professional. It speaks more to this immediate visceral need to lash out, to destroy, rather than careful planning.
And this desperation leads to another death, right? Calvin Dunn, the investigator.
Right. Dunn had apparently figured out where Hobbes lived and was watching the house, maybe anticipating something like this. He confronts Judith Nathan outside the burning house.
And she?
She shoots him. The first shot is almost clumsy, fired through her coat pocket. Yeah. But effective enough. When he doesn't go down immediately, she shoots him again. Kills him right there.
So even in desperation, she's become capable of pretty extreme, efficient violence when cornered.
Absolutely. The impulsiveness hasn't made her less dangerous, maybe just less subtle.
And this is where the ultimate identity theft plan really kicks into high gear. She's not just using fake names anymore.
No, she's preparing to become Catherine Hobbes. She's been observed shopping, buying clothes that deliberately mimic Hobbes's style conservative suits, blouses. She's studying her target.
Not just copying a look, though. It's deeper.
Much deeper. She actually manages to weaponize identity theft in a very concrete way. She gets a fraudulent credit card issued in the name Catherine Hobbes.
How? How did she manage that?
Remember the aliases? She used identity data stolen from someone else entirely, a Laura Murray, whose details she got from a club registry back in Denver.
Yeah.
Name, address, social security number. She used that information to apply for a credit card as Catherine Hobbes. She was literally building the bureaucratic framework needed to step into Hobbes's financial life.
That's chillingly methodical. And it all leads to the final confrontation.
Yes. She breaks into Catherine Hobbes's temporary apartment, and she's fully in character, wearing one of Hobbes's own new suits, carrying a badge. She's even changed her physical appearance again, dyed her hair, wearing blue contacts to match Hobbes's eyes. The intent is clearly total replacement, total erasure of Hobbes.
And there's psychological warfare involved, too?
Oh, absolutely. The first thing she does is force Hobbes to change clothes. Makes her put on old casual stuff at University of California, sweatshirt and jeans. She wants to strip Hobbes of her professional identity, make her feel vulnerable before the final act.
And Hobbes realizes in that moment what the killer's true goal is.
Yes, it's this moment of terrible clarity for Hobbes. She understands the killer wasn't just there to murder her. The plan was, and these are the words used, to kill Catherine and take her name, identification, weapon, loot her place.
Wow. Not just kill her, but become her.
Exactly. Hobbes perceives it not just as homicide, but as a total obliteration, like being devoured. The killer wanted to completely erase her own failed identity, the original Charlene Buckner, and replace it with the successful, controlled, powerful identity of the woman who hunts people like her, Detective Catherine Hobbes.
The ultimate performance, becoming her own pursuer.
The perfect final identity. But the fight itself, it's swift, right?
Yeah.
And the killer makes a mistake.
She does. Despite all the planning, mimicry, there's a flaw. Hobbes charges her, fights back. And during the struggle, she discovers the killer has a second gun, a backup, taped clumsily to her waist.
A detail she couldn't perfectly control.
Oh, exactly. Hobbes manages to grab that gun, the taped one, and fires, ending the confrontation, ending the performance.
And it's only after this, really, that the source material lets us peek behind the curtain. We finally get the backstory, the original trauma.
Charlene Buckner.
Charlene Buckner. Her whole childhood was defined by the beauty pageant circuit.
Pushed by her mother.
Pushed hard. The mother, Sharon Buckner, saw the pageants as the last boat out of poverty. But she was also incredibly abusive, verbally, constantly criticizing Charlene's looks, her weight, nicknames like Miss Ugly Little Zero.
That's brutal.
It created this environment where identity was entirely performative. Charlene learned from a very young age that the self was just a costume, something to be changed, optimized, perfected for the judges, for survival.
So the constant identity changes later in life. They were rooted in this.
Deeply. They were a desperate retreat from that original self, the one her mother told her was flawed, ugly, not good enough.
And there was another layer of shame, too, wasn't there, about her name?
Yeah, this is incredibly personal. Charlene found out that her very name was public knowledge, tied to her mother's affair. She was named after her mother's boyfriend, Charles Kepler. She felt like every adult in her small world knew the most private aspects of her life just by hearing her name.
So no privacy, constant judgment.
Constant judgment. Attempts to fit in at school were met with shaming, being called awful names like whore or stuck-up bitch. The public scrutiny, the demand for performance, the exposed private history. It all meant that Charlene Buckner felt like this walking, irredeemable failure.
So every alias, starting way back with just changing her hair color for pageants at age 5.
Was a pathological attempt to escape the shame of that original, known, publicly judged self. She had to become someone else, someone successful, someone controlled, someone admired, and ultimately, someone who hunts down the failures, the flawed people of the world, like Detective Hobbes.
It really reframes everything, doesn't it? The killing almost seems secondary.
It becomes almost a symptom of the deeper pathology, the desperate, lifelong pursuit of a believable, successful identity.
And the source material doesn't just focus on the killer, it spends a lot of time on the investigators, particularly Hobbes. Which makes sense, given she was the final target.
Yeah, and it argues, implicitly maybe, that Catherine Hobbes was, psychologically speaking, the perfect foil for Charlene Buckner's chaos, precisely because of Hobbes's own intense, hard-won battle for control in her own life.
Right. Her past wasn't simple. There was a struggle with alcohol.
A significant one. It stemmed from her first marriage, described as a classic starter marriage, to a guy named Kevin. It ended because he was unfaithful, violated that promise of forsaking all others. And that failure, that betrayal, sent her into a spiral.
Seeking control, maybe. Or losing it.
Losing it initially. She turned to alcohol, seeking the forgetfulness and indifference it seemed to offer. The sources are quite frank. She lost control, slept with a couple of male colleagues from work during that time.
And that was a wake-up call.
A huge one. That experience, the feeling of having completely lost control of her will, shocked her. It made her realize that alcohol was fundamentally undermining her ability to maintain the controlled, successful professional life she needed.
So she made a choice.
A hard choice. She retreated back to Oregon, quit drinking entirely, made a conscious decision because, as she put it, alcohol does things to me that I don't particularly want done. Her commitment to sobriety, to rigid control, it's almost a mirror image of the killer's commitment to cleaning, isn't it?
Yeah, both trying desperately to control a world, internal or external, that feels chaotic.
Exactly. And professionally, Hobbes didn't have it easy either. She faced skepticism, especially from her captain, Mike Farber, when he assigned her to work with Joe Pitt, the big shot from L.A.
She felt insulted.
Deeply insulted. She worried she was just being assigned as a token, a pretty face, to basically babysit Pitt, be his tour guide.
So she had to prove herself, not just to Pitt, but to her own department.
Constantly. And we see evidence of how good she actually was.
Yeah.
There's this anecdote about an earlier case, a guy named John Olson who killed his wife and hid her body in a trunk.
Okay.
Olson was cool as a cucumber during questioning, calm, collected, until Hobbes did one specific thing.
What was that?
She didn't push him emotionally. She used procedure. She formally requested a non-consent search of his house.
Applying official pressure.
Exactly. And that procedural threat, the realization that the official system was closing in, that's what broke him. He panicked, physically attacked Hobbes. Her insight wasn't just intuition. It was understanding how criminals react when the rules, the official structures, threaten their control. That observation nailed him. It shows her real strength was in process and observation under pressure.
And then we have Joe Pitt. Almost the opposite of Hobbes in some ways, right?
Very much so. Successful PI in his 40s, got this reputation drinker, gambler, brings a more chaotic, maybe intuitive energy to the whole thing.
But their dynamic, it develops into something more.
Yeah, it becomes quite flirtatious. He starts traveling up to Portland pretty regularly just to see her. And despite his reputation, the sources suggest Pitt is actually serious about it. He views their connection as a genuine, big decision.
He wants something real.
Seems like it. He makes it clear he's interested in something more lasting than just a fling. A commitment, which kind of contrasts sharply with his whole unpredictable lifestyle persona.
But it doesn't end well, does it? There's a final miscommunication.
Oh, it's deeply human and just tragically ironic.
Yeah.
Hobbes is at LAX. The case is over. She's watching Pitt approach down the escalator.
Okay.
And she sees him talking really intently to this young blonde woman. The woman is laughing, touching her hair. You know, looks like classic flirting.
Oh.
Exactly. Given Pitt's reputation, Hobbes's mind immediately jumps to the worst conclusion. She assumes he's just being Joe Pitt, the charming gambler, already lining up the next woman.
She doesn't confront him.
No. She keeps her distance, decides his life is just too chaotic, too unpredictable for her, for the control and sobriety she's fought so hard to maintain. She basically walks away emotionally right there.
Only to find out.
Only to find out later that the blonde woman Pitt was talking to so intently, she was a crime reporter from the LA Times, covering Tanya's murders, and she wanted to interview Hobbes about solving the case.
Oh, no.
The irony is just crushing. The whole case revolved around the difficulty of seeing the real person behind the performance, the mask, and the relationship between the two investigators who solved it collapses because of a complete personal failure of identification. Hobbes misread the scene, misidentified Pitt's intentions, assumed he was playing a role he wasn't.
Wow. It's a really painful reminder, isn't it, that even the sharpest observers, the most procedural minds, can be tripped up by the messiness of human relationships and assumptions.
Absolutely. Hashtag, tag, tag, outro, summary, and provocative thought.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. We've tracked Charlene Buckner through at least 4 major identities: Tanya Starling, Rachel Sturbridge, Nancy Mills, Judith Nathan, and a horrifying trail of victims left behind.
And what really stands out, I think, is her incredible rate of learning and adaptation and escalation.
Yeah, she went from that calculated, almost sterile murder of Dennis Poole,
To the manipulative, maybe power-fueled death of Brian Corey.
then the desperate, impulsive stabbing of Mary Tilson just to get a car.
Right. And she learned how to build these really complex, verifiable fake lives, and eventually how to fight back, orchestrating that sniper attack, murdering Calvin Dunn. She got more dangerous literally every day she stayed free.
Constantly refining her performance of success, of normalcy, of whatever identity she needed.
But ultimately, her goal wasn't just escaping justice, was it? It seems like it became this drive for total psychological obliteration of her original self, Charlene Buckner. And the ultimate expression of that was trying to consume and replace the successful, controlled life of the person hunting her detective, Catherine Hobbes.
So, thinking about her whole life, starting with those pageants, being told her identity was just a costume, then forging that birth certificate based on an actress's fan site, it really was all performance from the start.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider.
How much of Charlene Buckner's entire criminal path, the victims, the aliases, the escalating violence, was driven less by a simple impulse to kill or steal?
And more by this deep, desperate, pathological need to successfully perform a believable life, a successful identity. Was the killing, in the end, just the terrible collateral damage of her lifelong, desperate audition for a self she could live with?
Something to definitely mull over as you digest this deep dive.